All right, start by telling us, tell us your full name, tell us who you are, what you're doing, what your company is, and why you came to the expo.
Okay, my name is Carl Heller. I actually don't have a company. I'm just a private collector of pinball machines. I've been doing it probably for 15 years. And with most of these machines, like one grows into many. They're kind of like rabbits that multiply. Once you get excited about them, you start finding more and more and more, and you want to do more and more. And basically, it's just the subject of having space and room to be able to accommodate them all. I kind of got into the point, busier with life, that kind of thing. Basement's pretty full these days, so having known Kaz for a number of years, knowing he was doing the show, and the fact that I live a couple minutes from here, thought it was a good opportunity to actually take some games, bring them here and let people play them, hopefully sell a few, sell some parts, and the things that I ultimately won't ever probably need that I've accumulated through the years.
Now, what first got you into this?
Probably the initial thing that I remember the most. I mean, I played games when I was a kid, early mechanical stuff, like at the athletic club that we belonged to and that kind of thing. But I had a friend in junior high and high school whose dad owned an amusement company in the Lansing area. And he actually owned all the coin-operated equipment at Michigan State for a number of years. So he had pinball machines, vending machines, everything. So I used to spend time in his house, at his dad's shop, cleaning machines for them, that kind of stuff, and that ultimately kind of got me hooked.
Cool. Now tell us a little bit about your collections and what it is you're selling off.
Yeah, basically everything I have is up till about the early 80s. Very few machines newer than 1982 in my collection, so I have somewhere north of 40 machines, and probably only 2 of them are any newer than 1984. So I like the early Stern games, early Gottlieb games. I have a lot of the Stern machines, actually. Some rare ones like Iron Maiden and Viper, Catacomb. I've known that guy for a long time, and he's always been like this, by the way. I have some of the classic Williams games, some Bally ones, and then also one of the ones I'm selling here that I also have a few of is Zaccaria machines, which are made in Italy and are somewhat scarce over here. And it's always, the fun part is finding a machine, restoring it, fixing it, playing it that I've never seen before. Because I've played so many games through the years, and to find one that I actually never came across, which is somewhat rare now, but ultimately kind of got the bug going, is that, hey, here's a Stern machine I've never seen before that I can restore, fix, play, and the joy of doing that for the first time was quite fun.
Now, yesterday I came across a Mortal Kombat instruction booklet from the arcade game, and yet you don't have the Mortal Kombat arcade game. How did you stumble upon that? Well,
I used to have Mortal Kombat boards and things like that. I do have probably 12 classic video games in the basement at home. I've had somewhere with the JAMA connector you can throw in different circuit boards all into the same cabinet, which is quite convenient. But what I found, one, is they're not as much fun to play around with as pinball machines. They're not mechanical. There's no real detective work. It works or it doesn't. It's a TV and it's a computer. There's not as much to it as the intricacies of a pinball machine. That also is, they're very difficult to get up and down stairs, and they take up a lot more space. So pinball is a lot more efficient that way, both from the joy of restoring them to actually just being able to move them around a little bit.
Now, have you gone to other shows?
Yeah, I've been to Pinball Expo 5 times perhaps in Chicago. I've been to a couple shows that were in Vegas through the years. I'm sure there were a few others along the way. I haven't been to the things like Allentown or the York Show, which I know are very popular, but anything within driving distance or that can get me to Vegas certainly is fair game to go and check out what's going on. And much like what I'm showing here in terms of what I'm selling, it's always the stuff that I enjoy finding myself. It's just, it's all about the discovery, about the search, that used part that you need or you think you're going to need someday, and just talking to various people and finding out more about pinball.
Have you ever imported, like, okay, you've got some from Italy, what about from other countries?
Not many other countries that produced games at any great volume that made it here. The only other rare one I got was a Bell Games F1 Grand Prix that somehow ended up here in Michigan. It was kind of a cheap man's ripoff of High Speed. I actually got it to work, which was surprising. It was an interesting game. Ended up selling it because it just didn't play very well. But certainly have enough pictures of it. Very novel thing that I'm sure I'll never see another one of those again.
Interesting. Now, what do you think about the Pinball 2000 where you've got the screen?
No offense to anybody, I hate Pinball 2000.
Really?
It just absolutely was not my cup of tea. I mean, you can tell from the fact that I've only collected stuff through the early 80s. The newer stuff just doesn't capture my attention. I mean, one, I don't enjoy it as much to play. They're almost impossible to work on because the circuit boards are so advanced that the layman can't really work on them. The pads are too small, they're too high tech. The Pinball 2000, I don't care for the smaller cabinet. I mean, it's interesting from a graphics and a technology standpoint, but I'm all about the traditional style, this traditional shape, and more the traditional way of playing pinball than what they had in that package.
So what is your favorite really, really old machine, like the 50s or 60s or?
You know, again, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, high school and college, and I found talking to people that whenever they were in high school and college playing pinball, that's what defines them. So if you grew up, people 5 years older than me are all EM people. People 5 years younger than me are all the late 80s, early 90s people. It's, you know, like they say in the world, it's like the music you grow up on is the music that sticks with you. I think the pinball you grew up on is the pinball that sticks with you. So I'm very much, you know, an occasional EM will catch my eye. I mean, I have all of one in my collection. But, you know, I know people that's all they do. And so it's nice because the friends that I have, we can kind of coexist peacefully in terms of trading and buying and selling and stuff, because if they only like EMs and I only like solid state, we never are fighting over the same stuff.
Now, you mentioned video games, so I'm curious, nobody around here seems to recognize when I say the words the Pinball Hall of Fame video game that I'm referring to an actual video game that has pinball replicas inside of it. Are you familiar with that?
Well, there was a game called Pinball Video by Atari way back when.
No, I'm not talking about that one.
Well,
I'm just
that's
really
the only one I know about. It was called Video Pinball. There was an Atari cheap ripoff that they were trying to, you know, simulate pinball on a video game cabinet, which novel at its time perhaps, but and then there's also the games like Varcon out there, which is an interesting one, which they tried to put a pinball machine in a video cabinet, and that was a complete commercial disaster. So.
Well, if you have a Wii or a PlayStation 2 or 3 or Xbox 360.
And I do not.
You don't have any of those systems?
I have none of those.
Well, if you know anybody who does,
all right.
Really, you should check out Pinball Hall of Fame. It will amaze you at how much it replicates these machines. Because, like, for me, what was so cool is I never played Funhouse before.
Right.
So I played the video game version, and now I'm playing the real thing, and it's actually a really, really good representation. They've got the ball physics down very, very well.
Yeah, but you can't put a quarter in it. That's the difference.
You can't. Certainly the real thing is better.
That is the difference.
But since I'm unable to experience every real machine, I thought the video game version was pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I know. I know, I've seen them. They're very well replicated. I mean, there's a Gottlieb Classics that's out there. There's the Williams Classics, obviously, that they've put together. But I've been all about, it's funny because I've always been fascinated with things you put money in. So pinball machines, video games. I actually have some snack machines out on location right now, pop machine. Anything that's coin operated just seems to attract my attention.